There's something deeply uncomfortable that most people never admit out loud. The moment someone becomes too available, too easy to have, something inside you quietly loses interest. And the moment something feels slightly out of reach, just beyond your grasp, something inside you leans forward. You felt this in relationships, in opportunities, in things you wanted that you stopped wanting the moment you actually got them, and in things you didn't want at all until someone else seemed to want them too. This isn't weakness. This isn't immaturity. This is one of the oldest and most powerful forces in human psychology. And once you understand exactly how it works, you'll never see attraction the same way again. Here's what most people assume about this pattern. They assume it's shallow. That mature, emotionally healthy people should want what's available and good, not what's scarce and difficult. That chasing what you can't have is something you grow out of. But here's the thing. This pattern doesn't disappear with emotional maturity. It deepens with it. Because it was never about immaturity. It was never about games or ego or dysfunction. It's wired into the deepest architecture of the human brain. And it has been since long before modern relationships existed. Here's what's actually happening. Your brain is running an evaluation system. Constantly. Automatically. And this system doesn't assess value through logic. It assesses value through signal. One of the most powerful signals the brain uses is scarcity. Psychologists call this reactance theory. When something is freely available, when access is easy and guaranteed, the brain registers it as low priority. Not because it isn't good, but because the brain evolved to allocate its energy toward things that require pursuit. In the ancient environment your brain was built for, scarce things were the things worth having. Water that was hard to find. Food that required effort to obtain. Territory that others were competing for. If something was easy, it was because it wasn't particularly valuable. If something required effort, that effort was itself a signal of value. Your brain learned this equation so deeply that it now applies it to everything, including people, including relationships, including you. But here's where it gets really interesting. There's a second mechanism running alongside reactance theory, and it's arguably more powerful. Psychologists call it dopamine and the reward prediction circuit. When you already have something, when the outcome is certain, your brain's reward system produces very little dopamine. Certainty is comfortable, but certainty is not exciting. The dopamine system is not activated by having. It is activated by the anticipation of getting, by the possibility, by the uncertainty of whether you will or won't. Think about the difference between knowing exactly what your birthday present is before you open it and not knowing. The uncertainty is what creates the excitement. The chase is the point, not the arrival. This is why the pursuit of something consistently feels more compelling than the possession of it. Why a relationship that requires some effort to maintain often feels more alive than one where everything is completely secure and certain. Why the thing you were desperate to get often loses its appeal within weeks of getting it. The brain was chasing the dopamine hit of possibility. And once the possibility collapses into certainty, the dopamine disappears. And here's the part that almost nobody talks about. This mechanism is not a flaw in the people who experience it. It is a design feature of a brain that evolved to keep pursuing rather than settling. A brain that stopped pursuing after acquiring something would stop growing. Stop exploring. Stop improving. The restlessness, the constant pull toward what isn't yet secured, is what kept our ancestors alive. It just happens to create significant complications in modern relationships. Now here's what most people do when they understand this. They try to use it. They manufacture scarcity. They create artificial distance. They play unavailable on purpose to trigger the chase response in someone else. And this sometimes works in the short term, in the same way a sugar high works in the short term. But manufactured scarcity is always detectable. Eventually. Because the same brain that is drawn to the chase is also reading authenticity signals constantly. And when the scarcity is performed rather than real, when the unavailability is strategic rather than genuine, the brain registers the inauthenticity at a level below conscious awareness. And it creates a specific kind of distrust that no amount of strategy can recover from. So what does this mean if you actually want to use this understanding well? The first insight is this. You cannot be scarce. You have to be genuinely full. Not full in a way you're performing. Actually occupied. Actually invested in your own life. Actually building something that matters to you so much that your availability is naturally limited by what you're doing. That genuine fullness creates real scarcity. And real scarcity creates real attraction. The second insight is about what you chase. The next time you find yourself pursuing something with unusual intensity, ask yourself whether the intensity is about the thing itself or about the inaccessibility of it. Would you still want it if it were easy to have? Would you still want the person if they were completely available? Sometimes the answer is yes, and the pursuit is worth everything. But sometimes the answer is no. And recognizing the difference before you invest everything in a chase is one of the most important things you can do for yourself. The brain chases what it can't have. The question is whether what you can't have is actually worth having. And that is a question only clarity can answer. Not chemistry. Not intensity. Not the feeling of the chase itself. Clarity.